February 18th, 2025 City Council meeting. I am calling this meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. Thank you all for joining us. The first item on the agenda is our invocation and our pledge allegiance that will be led by our city attorney, Tom Trask. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, we pray that you guide us always, satisfy the needs that need to be met during this meeting, strengthen the council as they make tough decisions, guide them to be effective and decisive so that this meeting will be productive. In this we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, thank you, Tom. Next item on our agenda is the Oldsmar Open Forum. Each speaker will be recognized once and be limited to a 5-minute comment on any subject that is not scheduled for a public hearing. The open forum will conclude at 7:30 p.m. If you have filled out a speaker card, please hand it to the city clerk. Filling out a speaker card is not mandatory, and you will still be able to an opportunity to speak. When speaking, please state your name and address for the record. And we have one card, and Stephen Artie Cartwell, come on up.
Hello, I'm Steve Caldwell, 1910 Montego Court. I've lived in Oldsmar for 18 years. I'm the owner and operator of a new business, Bean Bust Coffee Creators. Find us at beanbust.co. A couple of weeks ago, I came here to the council to ask the council for assistance in revising some city ordinances that were preventing private enterprise. It seems that I wagged my finger a bit too much and ruffled a few feathers. I must apologize for that. It wasn't my intention to lay blame on the people who are just following the current vaguely ill-defined regulations. My intention was to get your attention so we can address the failings of this city ordinance, so I apologize. But now that I have your attention, I wish to have the following items reviewed and refined by City Council. First item, Section 14.4.5, uses, needs to define mobile food trucks. It currently says canteen, wagon, or truck with no mention of food vendors, yet food vendors are somehow restricted. Second item, Section 14.4.7, fees. The fees for temporary use permit need to be defined and applicable to the needed use so as not to put an undue burden on the requester. Third item, Section 14.4.2, permits. The power of temporary permits should be granted to the director of the Planning and Development Board. This board and its director should have the final say on what businesses are allowed to operate inside the city, whether it be fixed or location or a mobile business. Fourth and lastly, I would like to request that the abandoned roadway and vacant lot to the east of City Hall, hopefully to be developed one day, for the time being to be designated as a free trade area, that food truck vendors be allowed to set up and utilize this unused street as a central food truck court. I ask that the city of Oldsmar create the first food truck court in Pinellas County. Hillsborough County is already far outpacing us in the creation of this new food mobile cultural art form. I know that Dunedin has a very welcoming to our little coffee bus, and they are very tourist oriented, so they may do it. And that Clearwater is planning to create a food court in a very public place very soon because they invited us to join them, which we will. But I would prefer to work in my hometown. But you have to change this restrictive yet vague code that is blocking private enterprise. Thank you for listening to my request.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the council? Jerry, come on up. Mayor?
Jerry Beaverman, 512 Pine Avenue South. You know that 5 minutes up there, look at that thing running down there. Do you know why that's up there? Because of me in 1995, and that come back and taunts me. Yeah, bingo's right. You did it, I didn't do it. I was at a council meeting the year before, 95. I was off that one year, and the open forum went for an hour and a half. And the people out here called the council maggots, called them every name in the book. And I said, well, if I become mayor, you're going to have 5 minutes, and you're going to keep your mouth shut. If you're going to castigate the council. So now I'm living with it. That's okay. I see on the agenda that what I was going to talk about was I think the mayor put it on there about St. Petersburg Drive. Thank you. I spoke about that one other time, and see, I don't think it should have happened the way it happened. I really don't. I think something of that magnitude should have come before council. And we can know how the council feels about it and have the council vote on it. And if the council voted on it, fine. But everybody would know what happened. And that's what I didn't articulate myself too well last time, but something like that needs to come to council. It needs to be discussed by the council. That was never a neighborhood road. It's not a neighborhood road now. People from Pinellas County take that, some of them do now, take that road to get to Hillsborough County. Most of them take 580. But it's not a neighborhood road. It never has been a neighborhood road. From 1926 until today, it's been a thoroughfare. It's an artery, not a neighborhood street. I was going to volunteer to clean up the ditches, and it would take me a long time. It was in my, I had to get myself mentally worked up for it. Well, I guess I don't have to now. But see, some of the ditches that aren't being taken care of, guess who owns them? The city. The city owns them, and the city's not taking care of them. Anyway, I applaud for putting it on the agenda, and I applaud the council for hearing about it. Now the council can talk about it. And I would almost suggest they vote on it, but they won't now because it's already done. But that should come before the council. And let them make that type of decision, because it affects so many people. My street, I'll take care of it. Most streets do. But it's not a thoroughfare. It never was. In fact, when I moved there, it wasn't even a street. It was a patch of dirt. Y'all have a nice night.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Jerry.
Come on up, Big Dave.
Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, hold on. Jeez, I'm 4 seconds in already.
Do it.
Listen, I'm here to tell you another story about Oldsmar. I'm Dave McKinley. I'm the elected commander for our VFW post 12186 right here in our wonderful city. We meet at 400 St. Petersburg Drive on third Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. if you'd like to know more about us. Together with our auxiliary, we work on a lot of projects that are here, not just in support of combat veterans across the city, but our families and many community projects. I'm sure that you've seen a lot of us working cooperatively, doing a variety of things in the area. But tonight, I really want to tell you a story about one of our youth programs. And that is each year, throughout the help of fundraisers and other sponsors, such as Sport Clips, like the one we have up the road, make sure you tell Jill I sent you. But collectively, we've raised over $2.9 million in youth scholarships, monetary awards, and other incentives for high school and middle school students across the country, as well as outliers that are in the Pacific and across the European theater. Now, the Voice of Democracy is what I want to discuss this evening, and that program provides high school students with a unique opportunity to express themselves in regards to patriotic and democratic-themed recorded essays. This year, from across the entire state of Florida, we had over 1,000 entries just from high school students. Now, the topic was, is America today our forefathers' vision? It doesn't sound like an easy topic for anybody to really research or really dissect. And I'm sure that most of us that are out here, let alone a high school student, wants another homework assignment to do. But we had one of our own residents step up and participate in this program. So for right now, I'd like to announce Jackson Settle. Sir, would you stand up and join me up here for a moment? Now, before I give him the floor and my time runs out, I'm going to tell you a little bit more of why I was so enthusiastic about getting Jackson up there. So Jackson was not only selected by our VFW post here in Oldsmar, but he quickly ascended through the Department of Florida, straight through the District 21. There, in a room full of combat veterans from across the generations, he was ambushed at a formal banquet dinner with a row of his peers, and we asked him to deliver that speech to everyone. Wow. He didn't know that was coming. And so he proudly stood up and took with his essay, approached the microphone like a champ, and then went out and delivered what I truly do believe a well thought out, academically written, historically researched, and enthusiastic delivery to that entire room of veterans and family members, again, at the highest levels of the VFW for the state of Florida. We had national representatives that were in town from Washington and our headquarters out of Kansas. So from that moment, first off, I'll say that it was mom, dad, be proud, right? It was a rounding success that came out of that one with a standing applause out of that rather old, gruff group that we had there. And every one of them appreciated everything that he had to say. So not only on that moment was he awarded over $3,000 in scholarships from the state of Florida, but he was named the state champion for Florida, and he's being sent to Washington, D.C. for a historical tour of the monuments, a chance to earn up to another $35,000 from the VFW and the Youth Scholarship Program for his cohort. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give that guy a round of applause now. Right? See, last time he did great because he didn't have the warm welcome. But I'm going to tell you one more thing, and that's just for me. And that is my goal here in Oldsmar with our VFW and auxiliary is simply to help our youth learn and appreciate constitutional values, be proud of the opportunities that they go after, and continue to remain engaged in our community. So if you have other questions about this program or others, you can find me downstairs working at the chamber, trying to network other people, and or at vfw12186.org. And with that, in my final 5 seconds, Jackson Settle, do your introduction.
All right.
And give your speech.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to have to raise this because I'm so tall. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. McKinley and our local VFW here. They deserve every bit of support and money you guys can give them. Amazing people, and I really appreciate this opportunity. So I'd also like to thank my parents for driving me up there. We went to Orlando and just had a great ceremony. Everybody was so nice. But this speech was just, it came from me and my mom's discussions, because we love to talk a lot about our country, our rights, our freedoms, and just how special it is that we live in a country and we get to experience all of these freedoms that most people don't get in their lifetimes. So we brainstormed over this, and then I came out and I decided to make this. So I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you. In 1776, there were about 4 million people in the colonies and only 800 million across the planet. In 250 years, the U.S. population has grown to over 330 million people and over 8 billion worldwide. That is a lot of people to manage and influence, but the brilliant design of our Constitution and Bill of Rights has stood the test of time and the weight of a growing and changing world. Not only has the population increased, the 20th century saw the fastest rate of change than any other time in the history of the world. So while the Founding Fathers could look forward based on the history they knew, There is no way they could have considered the changes brought by electricity, cars, and computers. Man in the last century has had to evolve through both the industrial and digital revolutions. In addition to 2 world wars, murderous dictators, the women's movement, and civil rights. That is a lot of change in a short time for a brand new country. So, is it possible that America is anything like the vision held by our forefathers? Oh, I wish I had a magic time machine that could bring Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and John Adams into 2025. These visionary men would be stunned by how we live today. I imagine that Jefferson, the futurist of my trio, would be fascinated by our complex network of communications and our sophisticated manufacturing. Franklin, the inventor, would marvel at our modern rockets and medical science. And Adams would study our massive institutions for church, education, and law. After they all take it in, it would be an honor to inform them that despite all this growth and change, that their structure of the U.S. government, their compromises to form the Constitution, their sacrifices of the Revolution, and their bold ideas about personal liberty were brilliant, long-lasting, and inspiring. I would tell them that the flame they lit 250 years ago is now a raging fire that burns in the bellies of humanity. Countries around the world have modeled their own constitutions after ours. And for those people who don't have liberty at home, many go to the greatest lengths to escape tyranny by moving here. We're so lucky. However, we must also share some uncomfortable truths with our time travelers. Over the centuries, the fabric of American society and our governing documents have been challenged by economic suffering, social upheavals, conflicting ideologies, and foreign threats. I would have to tell Mr. Thomas Jefferson that free and honest speech in the media has not lived up to his expectations, and that his warnings were true. We cannot keep our country if we don't have a press that is free from censorship and government ties. I would tell Mr. Adams that he was right about the country requiring a moral population. We see today that we cannot maintain a civil, polite, and safe existence without firm law and order. And I would tell that Mr. Franklin that his quip, "A republic, if you can keep it," was prophetic, and that there are those in politics right now who seek to remove the protections that were put in place. The good news, however, is that their vision of the United States isn't just a vision. It's a mindset for personal freedom and a demand for government accountability. It's lived out in our never say die attitude, our drive to work hard, our ingenuity to be better, and in our big, generous hearts. It's a never-ending passion for this American way that gets handed down from one generation to the next. It improves with time. Every generation is gifted with leaders committed to this vision, this grand idea. So while the founders may not have recognized the America of today, and they may not be happy about certain things, they will without a doubt recognize the unique spirit that started with them, the one that makes our America their America. Thank you.
Can we get a quick picture with the council, please? Can someone take a picture for us? Can you come on up here? This is a great moment for our city. This is pretty special. You want to? Yeah, why don't we get down here? Yeah, we'll all go down. Mom and Dad, you want to get in too?
Do you want part of us up here or?
passion that you give, each word, just really passionate.
All right, a couple here.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. We gotta do mom and dad though.
So proud of you.
Mom and dad.
So proud of you.
Go get them, go get them. How are you gonna follow that?
All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak to the council? Come on up.
Hello, my name is John Durrell. I live on Lemonwood Drive. I'm an economist. I love Oldsmar, and I love the Oldsmar flea market. So tonight I just wanted to bring an issue to people's attention. The flea market is a big part of our community, and if you go there, it's a really cool place because of the diversity of the people from all walks of life. Some people just trying to make a buck on the side because inflation and cost of living's been tough on a lot of people. And there's other people that just go looking for a deal. I like to take my kids and we'll find, who knows, Pokemon cards, vintage toys, all kinds of stuff. I also love it from an economic perspective because in this modern era of big corporations and big government, free market economics is actually pretty rare. So when I go to the flea market, I see people just interacting over commerce in a very organic way. However, over the past few years, it's been kind of discouraging when I go down there. And actually, I encourage each one of you to go visit and just talk to residents. You know, it's a campaign. We can talk to voters. It's a good place to campaign. And it's just kind of discouraging to see it get more and more run down, more and more decrepit. And it's not the fault of the vendors and of the tenants, because you can ask them, how much do you pay? And I do. I always engage with them, and I'm curious. My background's real estate. And the landlord continues to raise their rents and continues to keep them on short leases and continues to move them here, move them there, and disrupt their businesses, which maybe it's a private business, but still I believe in treating people with decency and respect. So I'm not sure what's going to become of the flea market, but I just wanted to bring this to the council's attention because, in a way, it is the biggest employer in Oldsmar if you look at the numbers, and that's on the website of the flea market. And each one of those people cares about their business, and I just don't like how they're being treated by the landlord. I grew up poor, and so I'm always going to be for the common people, for the hardworking people of Oldsmar, and I've always been against the big money developers. However, my request, not that it means much, but I just wanted to bring attention to this. It is a big part of our community, and I would encourage the council to at least look at what's going on there. And even though it is a private property, at the same time, a lot of times when developers want rezoning and they want special permissions and special exemptions. So we have to have a balance on that. So my request, what I would like is that we preserve and protect the unique character of the flea market and improve it, because there is a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of potential there if the flea market was maintained better. So I think if we can improve the flea market, I think we can improve Oldsmar. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak to council? We'll close the Oldsmar Open Forum. Next is our community minute, and that will be read by our city clerk, Kristen Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. On our community minute tonight, so Oldsmar Historical Museum, there is a call for artifacts in honor of Veterans Appreciation Month. The Historical Museum is seeking artifacts from the community that reflect service in the United States Armed Forces. Examples include pens, medals, recruitment posters. Drop off at the library circulation desk during normal business hours or at the museum, which is open Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 12 to 4 p.m., or you can email libraryinfo@oldsmarfl.gov to schedule an appointment. The State Street Ditch Public Info Workshop will be held on Thursday, February 20th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the library. And Chalk the Park is this Saturday, February 22nd from 10 to 1 p.m. at Ari Olds Park. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is approval of additional new agenda items, which is 4, 6, 7, and 16. I need a motion for approval.
Second?
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is our consent docket, and this will be read by our city clerk, Kristen Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 1, consider approval of minutes of February 4th, 2025 council meeting. Item 2, consider approving payment to legal counsel for January 2025 legal services. Item 3, consider approval of payment of November 2024, December 2024, and January 2025 legal services to Bartlett Loeb, Hens and Thompson, PLLC, for Eric Seidel's litigation defense. Item 4, consider proclamation request from Lifelink Foundation, Inc. to recognize April as Donate Life Month in Oldsmar. Item 5, consider awarding 2025-002 ITB Landscape and Median Maintenance Contract to Cut Up Salon Service, Inc.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to pull any items? No. Then I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Yes?
I just
Councilmember
want
Gannon?
thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to recognize that the new procedure for proclamations brought forth by our honorable clerk is included in the consent docket, which was really cool. So, well done.
Thank you,
Well done.
Thank you. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is the presentation of our proclamation for the 2025 Flood Awareness Week. And Councilmember Andrew Knapp, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen just gave you 5 minutes. I don't know if you know that.
Challenge accepted.
Alrighty, good evening, everybody. As the mayor stated, I'll be presenting a proclamation for 2025 Flood Awareness Week. Whereas the city of Oldsmar has experienced severe weather in the past in the form of extreme rainfall or tropical system events, resulting in flooding in both coastal and riverine areas, and this flooding has caused damage and flood losses to homes and buildings in all areas, whether they are high-risk, special flood hazard areas, or low to moderate risk flood zones. And whereas the city of Oldsmar is a voluntary participant in the National Flood Insurance Program that provides residents with the opportunity to protect themselves against flood loss through the purchase of flood insurance at reduced insurance premium rates, as well as setting higher regulatory standards to reduce the flood risk and potential flood damage to their property. And whereas the reduction of loss of life and property damage can be achieved when appropriate flood preparedness, control, and mitigation measures are taken before a flood. And whereas public education and awareness of potential weather hazards and methods of protection are critical to the health, safety, and welfare of residents. The Florida Floodplain Managers Association have declared the week of March 3rd through March 9th, 2025 as Flood Awareness Week to promote awareness and increase knowledge of flood risk, the availability of flood insurance, flood protection methods, and how to prepare for emergencies. Now, therefore, I, Andrew Knapp, On behalf of Dan Saracki, the mayor of the city of Oldsmar, Florida, do hereby proclaim the week of March 3rd through 9th, 2025, as Flood Awareness Week in the city of Oldsmar, and further encourage the citizens to increase their knowledge of how to protect themselves and their property from flooding. And I will be presenting this proclamation to City Manager Felicia Donnelly. Normally, we would have presented this to the Planning and Redevelopment team, but they were hard at work all weekend and on the holiday yesterday. So she thought it would be appropriate to let them be home with their families tonight. So let's give them a round of applause.
We all want to get in the picture? Get behind you? Is that okay if we get behind? Yeah, yeah. We'll just be behind you? Tom, get in here. It's all right.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Well done, Councilmember Knapp. Great job. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
All right, next is item 7. Consider appointing Brandon G. to the alternate member vacant position on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Is Brandon here? Okay. There is one vacant alternate member position on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The board selected Brandon G. from 2 as their recommendation to fill the alternate member vacant position. I'll need since he is not here, I'll need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item?
Thank you for your
Oh.
service.
Yeah? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, and congratulations, Brandon, wherever you are. All right, next is our city attorney, Tom Trask.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 8 is a public hearing for the third reading of ordinance 2024-21. I'm going to read that ordinance by title only. Ordinance 2024-21, an ordinance of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, amending Section 6.11, variances and appeals of Article 6, flood control, stormwater management, and wetlands protection of the Land Development Code of the City of Oldsmar to designate a special magistrate in lieu of a variance review board to hear and decide on requests for appeals and requests for variances from the strict application of Article 6, as well as provide appeal procedures, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date of this ordinance. Again, that's the third and final reading of ordinance 2024-21 by title only.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. I am going to open up the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this item for or against? With that, I will close the public hearing. I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item? Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Graber,
Yes.
Councilmember Tatazeski,
Yes.
Councilmember Knapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Gannon,
Yes.
Mayor Shiraki.
Yes.
Ordinance 2024-21 is adopted with 5 votes for and 0 against.
Thank you. Item number 9 is consider adopting resolution 2025-05. I'll read that resolution by title only. Resolution 2025-05, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oldsmar appointing a special magistrate and alternate special magistrate to hear and decide on appeal requests when it is alleged that there is an error in any requirement, decision, or determination made by the floodplain administrator in the administration and enforcement of the flood ordinance, and requests for variances from the strict application of the flood-resistant construction requirements of the Florida Building Code, establishing an hourly rate and providing for an effective date. That was reading of resolution 2025-05 by title only. Have some background. I had reached out and contacted 2 different special magistrates that perform those services locally. Those special magistrates are Bart Valdez and James Denhart. They have both agreed to be special magistrates for the city. I am proposing that Bart be appointed the special magistrate and Mr. Denhart to be appointed the alternate in case Mr. Valdez is not available. The hourly rates for Mr. Valdez are $225 an hour, and for Mr. Denhart is $300 an hour for the work that they will be doing. The term of the appointment is just for 1 year. We'll come back to you next year for approval of whoever the special magistrate will be at that time. It may be the same, but it will require your approval at that time. We only want to appoint them for a year at a time.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is our city attorney, Felicia Donnelly, and that's item number 10.
You just got promoted.
Change.
Alicia.
City manager.
Oh, see, what did I say?
Is it a promotion, lateral move?
I don't, I'm not
You
sure.
might want his job. I don't know. You want to trade?
Sorry about that.
Item number 10 is to consider approving payment of $30,000 to Florida Municipal Insurance Trust for liability settlement deductibles. Attached is an invoice for $30,000 payable to the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust, represents deductible payments due to from the city for insurance liability settlements related to claims paid through December 31st, 2024. City received a claim for a slip and fall accident that occurred on March 14, 2021 at Veterans Memorial Park. The city's insurance carrier, FMIT, conducted an investigation of the claim, after which the claimant filed suit. FMIT, in coordination with the city's attorney's office, provided response to the suit. During mediation, a settlement agreement was reached between FMIT and the claimant, and the city has been invoiced for $25,000 deductible associated with settling the claim. City also received a claim for a trip and fall accident that occurred on November 7th, 2020 at Ari Olds Park. City's insurance carrier conducted an investigation of the claim, and the city's been invoiced for $5,000 deductible following completion of settlement negotiations. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion on this item? Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 11.
Item number 11 is consider ratification of emergency purchases to Tetra Tech, Inc., MT Causely LLC, Serve Pro, and West Coast Demolition LLC for hurricane-related services. In accordance with the city's procurement ordinance, I authorize several emergency purchases for hurricane-related services in the aftermath of the hurricanes. During declared emergencies, contracts can be issued to address emergency conditions, and the purchases presented to council for ratification after the emergency conditions have ceased. Thus, this agenda item requests ratification of those emergency purchases. There are various federal and state disaster programs related to declared emergencies and disasters. Those programs and processes are often complex and outside of the city's normal scope of work. City Council approved the use of comprehensive disaster recovery management consulting services with Tetra Tech, Inc. per the same pricing terms and conditions of the Pinellas County Cooperative Contract 178-0406P CC 25-004 at the November 5th, 2024 meeting, to contract with the consultants to aid staff with these processes. A purchase order was issued to Tetra Tech for $31,209.80 for comprehensive disaster recovery management consulting services and FEMA policy consultant estimated labor hours. This is an ongoing service that will continue throughout the FEMA reimbursement and post-storm processes. 2 purchase orders were issued to MT Causely LLC, a subsidiary of Safe Built, for $25,000 each for emergency code enforcement support services and emergency substantial damage services. These are ongoing that the county and state ended up providing in the aftermath of the storms. As a result, the cities reduced the POs to $5,000 each. They're still available as needed once the county and state resources have been recalled. This was completed under the same pricing terms and conditions of the Village of Key Biscayne 2024-04A PB 25-002, which is approved by council at the November 5th, 2024 meeting. The city's distribution and collection building was inundated by flood water during Hurricane Helene and received extensive water and mold damage. A purchase order was issued to Serve Pro for $43,753.27 for the WRF distribution and collection building mitigation services to prevent further damages and to remediate the water damage from the hurricane. The service has been completed in full, and the final invoice has been received. During Hurricane Helene and Milton, significant debris was generated that exceeded the capacity of the city's normal solid waste collection. The city's contracted solid waste hauler and city staff lack the equipment and manpower to restore the city to working order in a reasonable amount of time. Debris collection and removal contractors were utilized for these services. A purchase order was issued to West Coast Demolition for $50,000 to begin emergency disaster debris collection. This service has been completed in full and the final invoice has been received. The primary debris management hauling and the debris monitoring purchases will be presented to council for ratification at upcoming meeting. The remaining purchases make up the majority of the cost related to Hurricane Helene and Milton for the city. Staff recommends approval.
Okay, thank you. So this, I'll entertain a motion for this.
I'll move.
Second.
Second, any other discussion on any of this? All right, then I will, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.
Item number 12. Consider adopting Resolution 2025-03, revising budget for fiscal year 24-25. Attached, you'll find the Resolution 25-03, a revision of the annual budget for fiscal year 24-25. The General Fund, Public Safety Impact Fund, Water and Sewer Operating Fund, and Solid Waste Fund require adjustment at this time. The renewal rates for general liability and property insurance for fiscal year 24-25 were approved by council on September 17, 2024, but were received from the city's insurance carrier after the annual budget was prepared and therefore too late to request an increase to the allocations in the budget. These additional appropriations are spread across various cost centers: $43,035 in the general fund, $20,445 in water and sewer and operating fund. Stormwater Utility Fund and Solid Waste Fund are able to cover the increases of $1,980 and $8,590 respectively through internal budget revisions. Other adjustments requested in general fund include additional appropriations for the library and the recreation division, $9,000 and $12,000 respectively to cover increases in excess flood insurance. In the streets division, an additional $8,000 has been requested to replenish funds spent on emergency hazardous tree removals following Hurricane Milton. In the parks division, $5,500 has been requested to cover the cost of sod used to restore the former hurricane debris management site adjacent to City Hall. Parks Division has also requested to replenish $21,450 spent on structural evaluation of the damaged pier at Ariels Park as a result of Hurricane Helene. The Parks Division will be allocated an additional $30,000 to cover general liability deductible invoice from FMIT for the settlements for the trip and fall that we just discussed. Oldsmar Sports Complex Division has requested $28,000 to repair the baseball and softball backstop at field number 3, which was damaged during Milton. Contingencies reserves totaling $156,985 will be utilized to fund these adjustments, and those related to general funds portion of the general liability property insurance adjustments. In the Public Safety Impact Fund, $15,000 has been requested to purchase a replacement drone from the approved manufacturer in compliance with the amended Florida statute. This expenditure will be funded by the grant revenue as per the agreement from FDLE recently approved on January 21st by council. Additionally, $25,000 has been requested to purchase a light marine unit that's capable of navigating hard-to-access canoe trails and other waterways to efficiently respond to distressed individuals. Public Safety has also requested $175,000 to refurbish the existing T-54 aerial truck, which will allow the department to maintain level of service when the frontline unit is out of service. The refurbishment of T-54 will eliminate the need to purchase a new fire engine, E-54, for $600,000 in FY28, which is currently in the adopted capital improvement program. A reserve aerial truck will have enhanced capacity since it'll be a truck and not an engine. $200,000 of appropriated reserve will be recognized to offset these adjustments. In the Water and Sewer Operating Fund, the Finance Division is requesting an additional $35,000 to cover the emergency purchase order issued to Tetra Tech for public assistance support following the impacts of the hurricanes. The DNC Division is requesting an additional $44,000 for expenses to cover building mitigation due to storm damage from Hurricane Helene. The WRF Division is requesting an additional $457,000 to fund the rental costs of a temporary generator at the WRF and to cover the purchase and the installation of a new permanent emergency generator for backup power in order to ensure service continuity. The reverse osmosis plant division is requesting an additional $10,000 to cover the increase in excess flood insurance. $566,445 of appropriated reserve will be recognized to cover these adjustments and those related to water and sewer operating funds, portion of the general liability property insurance adjustments. In the solid waste $2,833,720 of revenue will be added to recognize the receipt of advance funding from FEMA for expenses related to emergency disaster debris collection and removal services following the hurricanes. Appropriations for the same amount have been requested to cover the actual expenses associated with the emergency debris collection and monitoring services. The following personnel services adjustments are presented to council due to recent retirement of tenured employees. These position requests are cost neutral or negative and do not require additional funding. They are being presented in this amendment because they represent a departure from the adopted budget. If approved, the position changes will be effective March 2nd, 2025. In the general fund, the city clerk's department has requested an upgrade to the existing part-time administrative assistant position to a part-time senior administrative assistant position and the elimination of a vacant part-time administrative position. Fire Rescue is requesting to remove 2 captain positions, add 2 division chief positions, and eliminate the vacant assistant fire chief position. In the Water and Sewer Operating Fund, Utility Billing Customer Service section of the Finance Division is requesting to downgrade the vacant customer service technician to a senior customer service clerk and upgrade 1 existing customer service clerk to a senior customer service clerk. Staff recommends approval. I'll read the resolution in its entirety, except the schedules. So Resolution 2025-03, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, revising the budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025, authorizing the City Manager and Director of Administrative Services to revise the existing budget. Whereas the City Council of the City of Oldsmar, Florida has approved a municipal budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025. And whereas the City Council of the City of Oldsmar, Florida is desirous of amending this budget by revising various revenues and expenditures, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, that the following revenues and expenditures be revised in the following manner based on the review of the budget. Section 1, City Council of the City of Oldsmar, Florida has hereby revised the existing budget for fiscal year 24-25 in accordance with Schedule A as attached. Section 2, the resolution will take effect immediately upon passage. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Do you want to take a drink of water? That was a long one. So all the years I've been on council, I think this is the biggest and largest budget revision I've ever seen. Great job, staff. Thank you so much. I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Well, any other discussion from anybody on this? Because this is pretty powerful. Yeah,
Just a couple quick comments. I'll echo that as far as all the work I'm sure that many staff put into dealing with everything that led up to this. And then secondly, just a shout out to our fire department chief saving us some serious dough on a good idea to be more efficient. And then also, wishing well into retirement, former assistant chief Renee. Thank you.
Councilmember Gannon, go ahead.
I just wanted to another sort of shout out to our city manager and our staff for processing and submitting during the middle of everything, having the forethought to think we should submit an expedited request to FEMA for advanced funding so that I don't know what other cities are doing. I haven't heard of any other cities getting, reimbursed just yet, but I'm sure we will start to hear of some. But to get $2.8 million already back, it's amazing how much it affected, the hurricanes affected the city too. Our buildings, our insurance costs rising, it's amazing. So, I know there'll be more expenses, but it's nice to have $2.8 million back.
Vice Mayor, anybody else?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Agreed 100% with what's already been said. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. I know that this is many conversations and emails over a extended period of time to get to in front of us. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Great job. Item 13.
Item number 13, considering adopting Resolution 2024-04, establishing the Public Art Advisory Board. I am going to read the resolution by title only, and then Joan Byrne is here to give a brief presentation. So Resolution 2025-04 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oldsmar establishing a Public Art Advisory Board, providing for the composition, appointment, and terms of office, providing that the board will serve without compensation, providing for its purpose and functions, and providing for its organization, the conduct of its meetings and legal counsel, and providing for an effective date hereof. And staff recommends approval before I turn this over to Joan.
Before I start, mine has no dollars at all associated with it, so that'll be a welcome relief, I'm sure. And I also want to shamelessly plug a public art project that the community, and I hope the city council, I have one for each of you to prepare. Show your love for Oldsmar. You can decorate these with photos, with drawings, with sayings, anything you'd like, but I will leave this with the city clerk and she can distribute them to each of you. I'm excited to see what creative council members we have. No pressure. But I also invite the public to, that may be tuned in to pick these up at either the library, Cypress Rec, or the City Hall, and return them to those sites as well sometime before April 15th, and we will have an exhibit beginning in mid-April. So I'm excited about it, and I will leave these now on to the important thing, which is establishing the Public Art Advisory Board. As you will recall, back in December, the City Council adopted a public art master plan for the city of Oldsmar, and that plan called for the creation of a Public Art Advisory Board. So tonight's resolution, if adopted, would establish that board. And the purpose of that board, if we go to the next slide. Okay, all right, I will do that. There we go. The purpose of the board is to advise and make recommendations to the city council on all matters that relate to public art. Pretty broad purpose, and to advocate for the implementation of the Public Art Master Plan. We know that we can't do it all right away, but we want to have a group that will continue to advocate for that plan. The board composition, as proposed, will be made up of 7 members and 2 alternates. 4 will come from a certain occupation, such as a professional artist, an architect, a museum curator, an art history teacher, an interior designer, a photographer, a graphic designer, an urban planner, people who have a vested expertise in public art. And 3 of the members must be Oldsmar residents with a strong interest or experience in an art-related field. Now, some of those can overlap. You know, we might be able to find an art teacher who's also a resident. In fact, I have one in mind right now that I've worked with in the past. But I think that this will provide us with both the expertise as well as the passion for public art that our citizens have. So what would be the next steps? Well, if this is approved tonight by the city council, people will be able to apply to serve on the board, and they can visit our website to find the appropriate application materials. I would encourage people to spread the word so that people who have relevant experience and interest will apply. You can stay informed by looking for updates on the Public Art Master Plan and for future board meetings, again, at the city's website. And finally, support public art, engage with local art initiatives and events. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you to approve the resolution or to ask any questions that you might have.
Do we have any questions for staff?
Nope.
No one?
Thank you, Tom.
All right,
I-
yeah,
well-
go ahead.
With the criteria that we have as far as 4 of the members being from occupations that involve art in some way, do we have, how loose is that? Like, meaning, if you're a freelance photographer, you do it as a hobby, does that count as one of our 4? If we have trouble filling those positions with people who are doing this as a profession, is there going to be leeway in that to make sure that we have a full board?
I think that we can probably stretch some of the definitions of professionals, but I think certainly my first choice, and I think your first choice will
Yeah.
be to have people who have real expertise. And it can be, we have some very talented artists for whom it is more than just a hobby.
Right.
So I think we can balance those things, yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Then I will entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Wow, all of us, a second fighting over here. Thank you very much. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much.
Okay, so item number 14 is consider adopting resolution 2025-06, revising the donation policy. And I'm going to turn it back over to Joan, but again, I'm going to read the resolution by title only. Resolution 2025-06, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, revising its policy for accepting donations made to the city and adopting guidelines, therefore, repealing Resolution 2004-33 and providing for an effective date hereof. Staff recommends approval, and Joan Byrne is going to give a briefing on the policy update.
I promise it will be brief. Okay, so as part of the work that the Public Art Task Force did in the development of the master plan, we recognized the need to update and have a more comprehensive policy for donations to the city of Oldsmar. The policy update that we will present tonight applies not only to works of art, it can apply to any kind of a donation to the city, and it applies to donations of all types, whether they're cash or non-cash. The public might be wondering, when they hear this presentation, why such a policy is needed. After all, it's a free gift to the city. But the purpose of a donation policy is to have a clear and transparent process for how and if gifts are accepted, how they're recorded and accounted for, and what rights the donor and the city have with respect to the future disposition of the donation. All very important things, and all things that I experienced in a previous employment when people wanted to donate something that we really couldn't accept. So I would encourage this. The policy itself, the purpose of the policy is to provide guidelines to create an orderly, and that's a key word, an orderly and consistent across-the-board process for the review and acceptance of donations to the city, including the composition of the review committee that determines whether the donation will be accepted by the city. And that review policy would include a representative from the department to which the donation is being made, as well as a designee of that the city manager appoints. If it's an art donation, presumably the person in my position would also be a part of that decision. The criteria that we would use to evaluate, or that the review committee would use to evaluate the potential donation for non-cash donations is the donation of distinctive merit and quality. Certainly with an art donation, you would want to make sure that it met certain guidelines. Is it reasonably durable? Is the gift given or the donation given without restrictions to future use and disposition? Very, very important. Is it acceptable based on available display and storage space? Like all places in Florida, we do not have an infinite amount of storage space. And sometimes gifts we can't accommodate them. And finally, it would be accompanied by a donation application form, and we devised a very simple form. For cash donations, the donation's purpose, it needs to be compatible with the city's long-range strategic vision and goals. And I think that's pretty straightforward. The procedure for accepting a donation would be that the donor fills out an application form and submits it to the city before any donation is accepted. If it's a non-cash donation, item would be inspected by the review committee members. We would physically go and look at the potential donation. If the review committee would then apply the criteria that we just presented to the proposed donation, and then if it's accepted, the donor and the city will sign a donation acceptance form, which presumably would be recorded with the city clerk and maintain, that record maintained as to the nature of this donation. And then if applicable, the city would provide appropriate recognition for the donation. In some cases, they will, in other cases, may not. As a footnote, if the value of the donation exceeds $25,000, which is also the CI for capital projects, a separate agreement more specific to that donation would be generated. Mr. Trask had provided a sample of a donation agreement that he had used with City of Tarpon Springs, and this was for like a $200,000 donation of some artwork. So in that case, I mean, I hope we get some of those very soon, but I'm also a realist. But I think having a procedure in place for that is important. And then once again, what would be the next steps? Well, stay informed, review the updated donation policy if it's approved tonight. And when it becomes available, it'll be on once it's approved, it'll be on the city's website. Share with potential donors, encourage individuals and organizations to both follow and consider donations to the city. And then finally, submit a donation. Interested in donating? Complete an application form on the website and let us know that you're interested. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Yep.
Just to clarify for anybody listening, or that we have several areas in our city that we donate things, not even just straight to the city, but also materials to the library, people donating to the Alliance. Can you give a brief description of the type of things that you're talking about here with this policy?
Anticipate.
Yes.
Well, one of the things I think that'll be really important will be the History Museum. People sometimes donate things that have tremendous historic value. Sometimes I think they clean out their garage. So it really depends, on that. That's certainly one area. There may be sets of books or AV materials that people want to donate, and whether the library can accommodate that or not, and whether it's appropriate with our collection. Those would be the kind. Sometimes people will want to donate equipment. They might want to donate, for example, fitness equipment to the rec center. Well, do they have a place to put it? Do they have a procedure for, maintaining it? Is it of the kind of quality that you would need in a commercial facility like ours? So those are some of the many areas where we might have donations.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And
Thank
I
you.
will deliver these.
Thank you, Joan, for these presentations.
Item 15.
Item number 15 is consider approval of the rental of an emergency generator for backup power at the WRF to Ring Power under the same terms and conditions as Sourcewell Contract 062320-CATCC25-016. The wastewater plant relies on 2 critical backup generators to maintain uninterrupted operations during power outages. However, the older unit, in service for over 20 years, has experienced a series of failures recently, including during the recent hurricanes, necessitating frequent repairs and the rental of a temporary generator to ensure service continuity. While staff is finalizing work with vendors and design consultants to ensure that the replacement generator meets the specifications for current and future capacity, Ring Power has offered more favorable rental terms contingent on the purchase or repair of a new generator. Therefore, the city will be returning the current rental generator authorized at the December 3rd council meeting and utilizing the Ring Power rental going forward until the new generator is replaced. This will save approximately $5,000 in rental costs per month. As the rental costs are projected to exceed the $25,000 for this replacement rental, City Council approval is requested. Staff recommends approval.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Jeez, you guys. All right.
Councilmember Knapp and then Vice Mayor.
Okay,
Second, is that all right?
I'm sure. Like, what
Does
was-
anybody else want to talk
Point.
about? Anybody else on the discussion on a generator?
Well, now I want the first. Andrew's saying he's got the point.
We can hot swap it right now.
No, it's fine. I'll take it.
Who got the other one? In any event, thank you, Felicia, for continuing to pinch pennies. Although
Yes,
$5,000 is more than pennies.
Yes,
per
and
month.
as important as the WRF plant is, that's why I jumped at the chance to make the second motion, Mr. Knapp, but just wanted to put that on record as well, sir.
Great. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is, oh, by the way, thank you, city manager.
You're welcome, Mayor.
Next item is our city clerk, Kristen Garcia. Do you have anything for us?
I do not have any items this evening,
No
Mayor.
cupcakes, nothing?
Nothing.
All right. Next is item 16, streets and stormwater presentation, including right-of-way of drainage and maintenance responsibility. And I just want to give a little background while Daniel Simpson comes up. I've been going door to door, and I had a resident say to me that the grass wasn't being cut because of the mayor. And I called Felicia Donnelly and our city manager, and I was kind of upset, and she calmed me down, and she offered to do this presentation. And Daniel, I want to thank you for the short notice, because it happened last week, and I just want to say thank you for getting this put together for the council so we can review. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about stormwater. So the St. Petersburg Drive has been a point of emphasis, but it's really a small part in a larger context that I would like to try to lay out tonight, and hopefully answer any questions. I'm Daniel Simpson. I'm the Director of Public Works. And so we have, I have 3 guiding principles that I've kind of worked out with the city manager and have communicated to staff. This might be the first time I've written them down, but I say these types of things all the time. So the first thing is that meeting or exceeding all regulatory requirements is non-negotiable. Second, city staff will not use city resources to maintain, will only use city resources to maintain city responsibilities. And third, city staff will steward resources to provide the highest value to its residents. Okay, so that's like, if I ask one of my maintenance operators, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, these things, if you're staying in this lane, then you're probably doing your job. And so I'm gonna, the bold items I'm going to kind of walk through tonight. So first, regulatory requirements. For stormwater, the main permit we have is an MS4 permit. That's the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System permit. It's more or less an operating permit for our entire city-owned stormwater system. It's issued by Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and the city is a co-permittee with Pinellas County. So we both submit permits, but it's technically one permit with all of the municipalities of of Pinellas County, except City of St. Pete. This complies with the Section 402 of the Clean Water Act, which is the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit, which is regulated by EPA. So basically, we submit to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection a permit which meets all of the criteria for the EPA also. And this permit essentially translates most stormwater regulations into a report that the city completes every year. So some of the MS4 regulations that we have, they regulate every aspect of the stormwater utility. So this is our nutrient data collection, which we contract with the county to complete most of, but we also do some in-house. Our capital improvement expenditures, all maintenance and inspection activities, pesticide and herbicide usage, any illicit discharge enforcement, high-risk runoff facility inspections, construction runoff, employee training, public education and outreach, and total maximum daily load bacterial pollution control plan. So that is, a TMDL is a regulated standard for a water body that is like a load reduction requirement. And a bacteriological pollution control plan is basically a measurable attempt to decrease the loading of nutrients. And when we say nutrients, we mean like mainly nitrogen and phosphorus. Okay. So there's major changes coming to our MS4 permit. The permits are usually 5-year permits, although they take sometimes they take a few years to actually get the new permit in place. It's kind of like a lease or when you're renting a house, like you stay in there on the old terms of the old permit until you get the new one. But we're expecting a new permit at the end of 2025. And we are preparing for the frequencies. There's going to be several changes in the permit, but most significantly is most of our inspection frequencies are moving from every 10 years to every 5 years. So every pipe, every ditch, every outfall pond, everything that we basically own will need to be inspected twice as frequently. And so this increased inspections aren't that big of a deal, but what is a big deal is what work comes from the inspection. And so that will increase our maintenance frequency. Another another part of our regulatory matrix is environmental resource permits. So any site improvement project that increases impervious surface over a small amount or affects wetlands and were built after 1980 are required to have a environmental resource permit. These are permitted through the Southwest Florida Water Management District. It's also all the water management districts in the state. These stormwater systems are required to be inspected by a professional engineer every 18 months or 5 years, depending on the type of system. And the city owns 20 to 30 permitted sites that are inspected by myself or the city engineer. The reason it's 20 to 30 is because it's not, first of all, we're doing projects currently, so those are always increasing. And second, for example, Oldsmar Sports Complex has, I think, there are 3 different permit inspections on it. So I don't know if you want to count that as 1 or 3. Okay, so next I would like to talk about our resources, and mainly I'm going to talk about our staffing. So the streets organizational chart is on the page. This is from our budget book. And there's, I'll go through what they do. The streets division ensures city roads, sidewalks, and rights-of-way are properly maintained, are in good working condition to facilitate safe and efficient travel throughout the city. They remove debris from the right-of-way, repair utility cuts from the distribution collection division, and install and repair maintenance of all traffic control signs. They also coordinate with Pinellas County for maintenance of FDOT roadways and county and state rights-of-way. The stormwater utility division is on the screen. And really what the main point I'm kind of trying to make with these 2 divisions is we have 13 field staff and 2 administrative staff positions that maintain all city streets, all sidewalks, signs, and stormwater infrastructure. But the stormwater division exists to minimize negative effects of stormwater to natural resources in the built environment. And they maintain all the city stormwater system, and they do preventative maintenance, and capital improvement projects are completed to improve areas of concern. Okay, so next step, we're going to speak on city responsibilities. So how can we determine what we're responsible for? Should we just go off of what we've always done? And as I've come into my position, I've kind of been trying to document exactly, like, why do we maintain any given thing? And the way that we go about that, and it is intentionally alliterative, plats, permits, policies, and public records. First, plats. I have a plat on the screen which you can't possibly read. But this is one of the pages from the East Lake Oaks Phase 1 plat. And the red box, I'll read to you because you obviously can't read it. It's a drainage easement note. General maintenance of the drainage areas and retention and detention ponds located in the drainage easements shall be the declarant, its successors or assigns, which may include the East Lake Oaks Community Development District or the East Lake Oaks Homeowners Association, Inc. So oftentimes we're able to determine the ownership by the plat very clearly. okay? But sometimes we can't off of that, and we move to another thing. We look at our permits. So each environmental resource permit has a defined operation and maintenance entity. While that does not necessarily obligate the city or anything, it does if usually on a Southwest Florida Water Management District, the property owner has to sign off on who the operation and maintenance entity is. So if there's an existing SwiftMud permit, we search those records and see what it says and where that permit is and who the operation and maintenance entity is. If that doesn't work, or for other types of things, we look at the city policies. So city code defines some maintenance responsibilities, which we'll speak on in a minute. Also, we can look through historic city council actions, kind of determine different decisions they've made in the past. We also look at other public records for some guidance. Obviously easements, so sometimes easements aren't dedicated on the plat, but they're dedicated separately. Or sometimes HOA documents help the HOA understand that they have always maintained something, okay? But clearly, this, when it's not clear, we reach out to the city attorney and he gives feedback and does a real decision. Okay, so next, steward resources to provide the highest value to residents. So what does it mean to provide high value stormwater services? So my understanding of this, or what I believe, is efficient relationship between dollars spent to services rendered. Residents pay stormwater utility fees and receive high quality and consistent services. That's what one of my goals, or I think any government official's goal. This furthers the city council's goals, which are governmental efficiency, these specific ones: governmental efficiency, fiscal responsibility, and environmental resilience. Okay, so the what is somewhat easy, but the how is actually a little harder. So how do you actually deliver high value stormwater services? So we apply city codes in an equitable and ethical manner. We reduce waste. So in my mind, reducing waste is to stop doing things we shouldn't be doing. So that's one way we can reduce waste. Move from reactive maintenance to proactive maintenance. So the more that we're responding to calls versus having a schedule and staying on it, that helps us stay on track. And then a professional asset management, which I'll just discuss in a moment. And then creating a culture of accountability. So this is a flow chart I've created because I love flow charts for professional asset management. And this is what I'm trying to implement in my department generally, and stormwater specifically. So the first step is to inventory assets currently being maintained. Next is document legal responsibility. Third is to confirm that responsibility is the city's, or transition that maintenance responsibility to the proper entity. Determine the required level of service, complete maintenance, and then have accountability, and then adjust things as needed. So step one is an inventory of assets currently being maintained. So this is one of the things we're pretty good at. We know what we do and have always done. So this is reviewing all of the work orders and where we're actually working. The next step is document the legal responsibility. So we go in and we look at the plats and review legal documents to ensure that the city has maintenance responsibility. The next step is to confirm or transition maintenance responsibility. So oftentimes when we go through this effort, we find that it is the city's and we should be maintaining it, and we do. And really that is one of the goals. It's not to get out of doing things as much as it's to only do what we're supposed to. Below are some of the locations that have reviewed and are clarifying city responsibility versus private owner responsibility. The Woods of Forest Lakes, Bungalow Bay, Guller Village, we're in the process of looking at Bay Arbor, we're in the process, and East Lake Oaks, there's a portion that we're kind of debating. And many of these, there isn't necessarily, it's a debate on like where ours ends and where the HOA begins. So for example, the Woods of Forest Lakes, water hits the street, that's ours. Goes into the stormwater pond, it's theirs. Goes into the wetland, nobody should really mess with it. Comes out of the wetland, goes into the street, ours. Out of the street, into the Forest Lakes Boulevard neighborhood. In that whole system, exits that, goes to Bay Arbor, exits that, becomes our ditch, under DOT. Okay. So,
Does the water know it's doing all of this?
There's a flow chart.
my point really is just that, like, it's not just like, oh, that whole thing's theirs and this is ours. It's kind of, we're trying to track every drop of water, where it's going and which one's ours to maintain. And we work with the HOAs to budget properly and to maintain, like, to get a good maintenance schedule for what they're going to need to do. And that's really our transitioning to them is not just like, well, it's yours, see ya. It's, well, this is how we would maintain it if it was ours, and this is the steps we would take. And if you have a scope of work you need me to review to help you develop that, more than willing. Next, city staff is reviewing rights-of-way maintenance. Land Development Code 12.3.3.4 states, the owner responsibility for right-of-way. It shall be the responsibility of the owner, tenant, or agent for the maintenance of parkway and right-of-way areas outside the property line contiguous to the property in accordance with the standards set forth in this article. So when we kind of see this code, which is a council policy basically, so we began to make sure that that's being carried out in my actual staff. But staff found that most property owners have been maintained, most property owners are maintaining the right-of-way and their portion of it. And city staff began to implement the policy of city council and transition these areas to the private property owners. Is this a question, or are you?
Just for clarification, when you read that, I just want to make sure everybody understands that you mean the person's house, their lawn, their delineated property, all the way to the street.
Yes, I have a diagram in 2 slides that will
good.
help.
See?
I have
It's
the
coming.
definition from the
It's coming.
code, which probably won't help a lot unless you really stare at it.
It's
But
coming.
basically, and I'm not going to read all this, but it defines the right of way in the code.
Yeah.
In Chapter 58, Article 2, Section 5838. But this diagram helps. It's basically 99% of the time, it's the area from your front property line to the neighbor across the street's front property line. That doesn't necessarily apply with paper streets and things like that, but so it's the area, and generally your property line not always sits behind the sidewalk. So it's about that on average.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion about, well, my property goes up to the sidewalk, or my property doesn't include my ditch. That's the city's. There's been.
Understood. Yeah. So it basically, if you were in the the lovely one on the south or the bottom, your maintenance responsibility would go to the edge of the pavement.
Okay.
Including the area between the sidewalk. So that's what we call the parkway. If there was a median, that would be the city's responsibility.
Got it.
Or unless it's in a state road. Well, no, those are ours too. Okay.
Well, then Dan, so if you can go back to that previous slide. What if you live at the house above it, where there's no sidewalk, no curb? I think that's where the confusion's coming in.
Okay,
I think
then-
everybody knows you have to mow the lawn that from your sidewalk to your street, right? But there's generally a right-of-way there, right?
So it's you would be responsible up to in nearly all circumstances. I mean, really, you would be responsible up to the roadway,
Okay,
Up to the road.
regardless of whether there's a sidewalk there or not.
understood, thank you.
Yeah. So these are some areas that we have transitioned landscaping maintenance of rights of way and other parcels. So this has been Pine Avenue North, portions of Forest Lakes Road, portions of Racetrack Road, portions of St. Pete Drive, Jefferson Avenue, Congress Street, areas of the Mears Industrial Park, areas of Cypress Forest Industrial Park, Town Center Fountain Parcel. So there's several areas that we've identified. And again, it's not the whole street. It's usually 1 or 2 properties that we've kind of reached out to and said, this is your responsibility. please begin to do it. So what we did in 2002 for St. Petersburg Drive specifically, that's when we took over. The right-of-way was transferred from the DOT, Florida Department of Transportation, to us. I believe it was a swap where they got where the current State Road 580 is. And that was transferred to the city of Oldsmar. In March 28th, 2024, we gave a first notice with any affected property, basically mainly the streets that were not maintaining their parkway. So we provided the notice on the right to those houses and basically told them that we have done courtesy mowing for years and we don't plan to continue, and that we would, by May 1st, no longer do this service and it would be their responsibility. So by late April 2024, we completed our last mowing of anything. So we wanted to leave it in the best quality possible. So then in late June, any property that, by that time, that's when we're getting higher grass. Any property that hadn't maintained it, we reached back out and gave a second notice. After that, then we began, prior to the hurricanes, most people came into compliance. And we were working through a voluntary code enforcement effort. And again, today, most are compliant. But we are working with code enforcement to work through the remaining non-compliant properties. Okay, so that's kind of brings up to the next step. So once we kind of know what we own, we need to figure out how often we should, work on it. So the level of service is what I'm trying to determine and establish for everything we do in stormwater. So this is the level of service is the frequency and quality of maintenance activities. So for most items, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection determines the level of service through our stormwater permit. But we also have some levels of service established in our comprehensive plan. So once we have a level of service established, then we actually do the work. So city staff is always improving our documentation of completed work, and we have budgeted for an asset management system to better document our maintenance. But once we've documented this maintenance, it's time for some accountability. So city staff is accountable to DEP through our city's permit on whether or not we're completing the level of service from our permit. And then the question is, did we meet the target or required level of service? And then if not, like why? And I'm trying to establish a culture of accountability in the department and that not be a bad word. Because sometimes you're accountable for your successes as much as you're accountable for your failures. And just because we don't meet a level of service doesn't necessarily mean it's a staff issue, although it may be. So we want to evaluate any place where we don't meet the established level of service, and it may be a personnel issue, it may be a management issue, it may be we don't have enough resources, or it may be unrealistic level of service. And that leads to the final step in the process. We'll be able to provide clear evidence of resource needs or excesses and be able to reallocate those resources to more appropriate places. And that the hope would be that you'll be able to the staff will be able to provide City Council information to make educated decisions regarding level of service adjustments or future resource allocations. So our next steps in this kind of long-term effort to clarify our maintenance responsibilities and achieve our maintenance requirements is to complete an inventory of paper streets and other rights-of-way, continue evaluating subdivision maintenance responsibilities, educate HOAs and residents regarding maintenance responsibilities, assist HOAs in the development of maintenance plans. And then as my last slide, I wanted to kind of give a small project that we were able to do that really was kind of a highlight of the type of thing that we would be doing if we weren't doing a bunch of stuff that we're not really supposed to be doing. So we completed a major erosion issue. There was a major erosion issue on the curve going into the Mobley Bayou Park, where the road was we were going to lose the road really. And so our staff rebuilt the banks, and we used broken concrete sidewalk panels and rebuilt it. On the bottom left, you really see a good picture of it. But this was a really low-cost project we were able to deliver in-house, and it actually extended out a budget request item that we were expecting in our next year's budget. We won't have to do right away. So that's all I have. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Really appreciate that very much. Are there any questions for staff? Yes. go
Yeah,
ahead.
so, obviously the reason you're here is because this has been a concern for many residents. I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. So you had a list there of like the several different places where the work had transitioned. Over the whole city, what percentage would you say had to be transitioned? Like a small percentage? Most people were already maintaining their area?
I would say about 5 to 10%.
Okay.
Okay. Needed, like, now that's not number of streets, that's properties.
Okay.
I mean, it's difficult to really, I have not done that calculation, but I mean,
I
it's not a overwhelming majority or even a large amount by percentage.
Okay. And then, from your understanding, so that mainly the St. Pete Drive area, that you said that went from, was in 2002?
Yes.
It came under the city's,
It became a city street.
right. So the city took over that maintenance as a courtesy for the
I'm
residents
not
there,
sure
or do
what
we-
circumstances like occurred, why we were maintaining it.
And I'm going to interrupt. We did search all council agendas, trying to find any sort of decision. We could not.
Okay. So basically, we're trying to find why we were doing this in the first place. Was it just grandfathered in? Did we do it just because we were always doing it?
We can't, I can't speculate as to why, but we couldn't find any evidence of any council action that directed the resources to be allocated in that manner.
Got it. So our only choice at this point is to look at what we have and then move forward from here. And that's why the decision was made to transition it to,
Yeah, I mean,
based on our code.
yes, I felt like we should follow the code because
Agreed.
that's,
I agree.
I think, my job to do
Yeah.
that. Like,
It's our job to do that too. So I just want to clarify, because I know that there's probably some people who are going to be watching this, and I want to make sure that we're very clear about why this decision was made, that, it's not a like or a dislike of individual people or individual properties. It's not favoritism. In fact, what we're trying to do here is not have favoritism, have it clear across the board. Everyone maintains their own property, and the city's not doing favors for people.
that, I mean, I wouldn't phrase it like that, but yes.
Well,
I mean,
phrased-
like I
that's
wouldn't.
my own
I'm just
personal
saying,
interpretation. I'm not trying to put
our
words in your
biggest
mouth.
goal is to only do what we're supposed to do and do it really well. And it's hard to do what we're supposed to do really well if we don't even know what we're supposed to be doing, or if we're doing a bunch of stuff that we haven't ever agreed to.
Right. Okay.
I can attest to just kind of the duration of which these efforts have been ongoing, because when I was a resident over in Hayes Park Village at the time and serving in the capacity on our HOA board there, I mean, this goes back several years where, and for all those that didn't know, the Hayes Park HOA actually owns all the property up to Pine Avenue west of that development. So there's a giant cypress head there, and we basically own that corner. Well, I say we because I'm still a homeowner there, but we own that corner. So basically, we have two frontages on Hayes and Pine that we're responsible for up to the right-of-way. We didn't know that for the first couple years or several years of being responsible, and the city was doing courtesy mowing. And then ultimately, I don't know who it was that contacted the board or the management company however long ago, was like, y'all got to start taking care of this. And because our landscaper hadn't bid it right at the time and didn't know, then it was like this cost increase, so it was a whole thing to kind of get through that transition period. So I actually went out one time and whacked down and mowed the whole right of way because we had to get in compliance. So, I mean, that goes back several years, so I think it's been this methodical transition or path of getting everything in compliance and up to that same standard. So it's definitely not sudden, although for any individual owner, it can feel like, hey, now it's me, and not knowing what all has been shared tonight kind of tells the whole story, the bigger picture of the effort. So thank you for everything that's been going, and everything's going to be different along the way as you navigate the individual ownership challenges.
So two things.
Valerie, have any other questions?
Well, I wanted to clarify, sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
I wanted to clarify too, some of the efforts that were made for some of what you're talking about, Andrew. If you have an HOA, I live in a neighborhood with an HOA, so the city would have reached out to my HOA. It wouldn't have come to my specific property, even though I do have a ditch that's right next to my house that's maintained by my HOA. They wouldn't have contacted me directly. There would have been like a liaison on my HOA. So I think it feels more personal for people who have individual homes along St. Pete Drive.
Yep.
Can you go over some of you touched base on some of it, but like I think that you guys like knocked on doors and
Yes.
such as well and talked personally to those homeowners. So can you cover that?
Yes. Our first step, we put door hangers on everything on St. Pete Drive, not assuming that anyone was or wasn't. It was just everyone, because we knew that was a area that there may not be as much compliance as other areas. But we did that at the same time. We did an area in the Mears, like there's 5 or 6 streets we did at that moment. So we did a door hanger and then followed up once it really got high with another notice. But again, not like this really, it was a voluntary, can you please follow the code? Remember, I don't know if you saw it, this is what we're doing. So we're working through, and we're working with people. It's not our intent to hammer everyone in the city, but it is, it's clear, in my mind, it's clear it's their responsibility, so we shouldn't be doing that for someone.
Understood. Thank you.
So I have two things. The same thing happened, what Councilmember Knapp is talking about, East Lake Oaks. The city cut the lawn behind Moccasin Creek for years. And then all of a sudden, someone complained about the creek overgrowing. So the city manager at the time was Al Braithwaite. They came in and they cleaned it, and that's when I believe you realized that you shouldn't be cutting that lawn, and you turned it over to the HOA. Well, they started cutting it, and then they figured out how much work it was, and they tried to give it back to you, and you said, no, we're not taking it back. But, and it's understandable. I see what you're saying, that it needs to be done. And I'm just so glad that you clarified this tonight, because I don't want to hear the complaints anymore, because if I can always go back to your presentation. The second thing I want to mention tonight is I thought that Mayor Jerry Beaverland had a good point. I think next time, if we decide to do something like this, and to our citizens, I think we should just bring to the council and just bring it up. Yes, go ahead.
I will answer that. The council can, of course, add anything to an agenda for discussion for policy changes. So that's the way that works.
But anyway, I'm just saying that if that comes up again, or you're gonna do a different neighborhood, maybe just somehow, just communicate with us.
I sent emails continually to the council to inform them of the actions that we were taking throughout the process. Yes, we did inform council of the actions that we were taking to uphold the policy that we were given by council. So again, the council can, it comes down to resource allocation and budgets and what the policies are that were given. So anytime that a council member wants to bring up a policy or change direction, then the council member, of course, can add something to an agenda to discuss.
I don't think
But to be honest, Mayor, it's difficult to know what you may want to discuss or not when we're just upholding the code as we're given.
I have just a couple of questions.
Yep, go ahead, Councilmember Gannon.
Daniel, you mentioned something interesting to me about streets and stormwater, personnel-wise, 13 and 9 people, I think.
No, it's a little deceptive because some of the people, like I'm on there, but I'm also everywhere.
So
Like,
you're not,
you know,
you're not out there? No.
So it's 7 and 6 in terms of actual field staff.
Okay, so that's a really interesting fact to me. So those same 7 people in one bucket and 6 people in one bucket are mowing what's hours to mow. They're also doing projects like you showed with the sidewalk pieces to maintain the erosion or to prevent the erosion of that road into Mobley Bayou on the south side of the dog park, I guess it would be. I don't know what side of the dog park it would be. And those same people are doing, digging out the drains before hurricanes. Are they the same people that are going around doing these inspections?
Yes.
The
Well, some of the inspections have to be done by a professional
by you.
engineer,
Okay.
which would be the only professional engineers we have on staff are me and the city engineer.
Okay.
But the MS4 inspections, we have someone that's pretty much dedicated to it, at least right now. And again, the inspection part is difficult, but the problem with an inspection is it generates work. And
Right.
you have to do the work once you've inspected it. So, and it's not to say that like there's these gaping, miserable, like holes in our stormwater system. If it was real functional, we would make sure it gets addressed. But these are like, videoing the pipe or looking at the outfall. If there's cracks in it, we got to redo it.
Right.
Sorry.
Because I know we've outsourced some mowing, I know, on certain large medians, on like Lafayette or out on Tampa Road or 580, where, 7 and 6, it's just not a lot of people. To me, that's not a lot of people for, I think, how many miles of sidewalk are we inspecting for cracks? How many miles of local streets do we have? It's not a lot. So when I see the personnel, the level of service, is it a personnel issue? Is it, what is the potential cause? So I get that the allocation of resources is critical, because if they have to mow, then they're not doing something else, because there's only so many bodies to go around.
Yes. Before each major storm or large rain event, they inspect all
It's okay, take your time.
all catch basins.
Are
you okay, Dan?
What's a catch basin?
The catch,
The stormwater went down the wrong pipe. This is what happens.
yes, that's the catch basin is the part on the street that you see, right? So
Okay.
we inspect all of that fully. So back to your point, we've limited resources, and that resource allocation is really a direct correlation of revenue from a city. So, basically taxes equal the amount of level of service that we can provide.
Right.
And so we've talked about that before, and in this, it amazes me of all the work that we can do with the limited resources that we actually have in these divisions. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
When you think about just getting ready for a storm, and then also why we're doing all of that, doing everything from sandbags to everything else that we're doing at the same time, that same couple of weeks before.
Which is the same division.
It's the
Sort
same.
of, yeah, some of the same people.
Right, so you can see it's about nine actual, field staff that is actually doing all of this work. It's pretty incredible that they can do that much,
So,
in my opinion.
yeah. So I've gotten some questions, and if you can, great. If you can't, that's okay. She might know too. But there's been questions about how the St. Pete Drive Complete Streets project will impact some of these ditches. And let me just give you a little bit of context. Like Andrew, I've been in the ditches. One of the ditches that I was in, to be completely fair, was south of the school, right? So it's a wide, deeper kind of ditch, and the school board is responsible for it. But in an effort to just help or do, pick up, I don't know, a mower. You picked up, you
I
drove over there
borrowed
with
my
your mower.
dad's zero turn.
There
so
you go.
It was a
There
fun
you go.
experience.
It was interesting though, and my next thought was, okay, well, how long will some of these ditches be an issue if we're doing complete streets? Up to the spot where complete streets stop.
Right, so the Complete Streets project, right now, we're reconfiguring it to put it back on the street for a bid because it exceeded the amount in the budget. But the intent is to pipe the ditches from Bayview all the way down. So there'll be culverts and they'll be covered with, sod.
Yeah, and so,
So from Bayview all the way to, Tampa Road, so toward the library, that section of the project is all gonna be, there won't be ditches anymore.
so it would still be the landowner's, property owner's responsibility to maintain to the road, but at least it would be flat. Or as flat as could be.
And I also want to add that we're still maintaining the profile of the ditches. So we're still maintaining the ditch to make sure the stormwater capacities are moving. And so, the property owner is responsible for the maintenance of the landscape. So not the ditch itself. We still will clean those out to make sure it's the vegetation in the ditch that the homeowners that the property owners are responsible for. We're still maintaining the actual flow of the ditch.
Of the water.
Yes.
Okay. Because
Or the shape of the
sorry, I don't mean to be directing, if you can talk now.
Are you okay, buddy?
I don't know. Keep going.
I think that's an important thing to
Mayor
know.
brought up a really important topic, and these are some important
yeah.
questions, because
They're
there is
very
a
important.
perception, there's a perception that if the city is not mowing the ditch, then the water can't flow. And that's why there's flooding, and that's why, the downtown area flooded during the hurricanes and the flash floods. And from what I understand about the data that we have, and from what I understand about the city's procedures for maintaining before storms and all of that we've learned from the flash flood, tropical storm Debbie, at Hurricanes Milton and Helene, that's not actually the case. Am I totally wrong?
No, you're,
Okay.
yeah. The flooding that occurred from Helene, came from storm surge, so it didn't come from the stormwater system. Now Milton, does rain, so it's the rainfall is the stormwater system. So you think of that as like, we can't stop, the bay coming up is very difficult, right? And so the stormwater systems, like we talk about that during the stormwater master plan, is really for rainfall. And so, those, through the stormwater master plan, we're coming with a list of priority projects that the consultant's gonna recommend to try to mitigate some of the rainfall effect, which created really flooding on the north side of Tampa Road, right? So Douglas Road area, that's a result of the rainfall. So,
Forest Lakes.
yeah, so I encourage everyone to, we're gonna bring the stormwater master plan, back, of course, to council to really, take a look at those things, because they're different.
You okay, Dan?
Let's
I have
get
a
this, let's get
I have a
this
cough
over
that
so we can
is
get
triggered by stress. Sorry.
I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Water's coming back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering it.
Daniel, thank you so much.
All right, next item is item 17, consider a letter to the President Trump from the area mayors. On February 4th, we had a Zoom meeting with all the mayors around the beach area and some of Pinellas County. And the lead on this is Mayor Dave Gaddis, the mayor of Bel Air Beach. He is the one that had the Zoom meeting. I was on the call. And basically, it's about, we have a bunch of residents in Pinellas County that are on fixed income. Their houses were flooded. They've been forced out of their homes. Some of them have been forced to raise their homes. Some of them are being forced that they might never even be able to go back in their homes. This is happening in our city, but it's happening all in Pinellas County. The mayor's council, all the mayors that were on this call, And by the way, Dave Gaddis is also the Secretary Treasurer of the Pinellas County Mayor's Council. And during this meeting, we were just trying to come up with a solution so that we all as mayors can send a letter to the president and try to just get some traction, because we don't know if we're gonna get anything out of this at all. And I know Felicia and I had a long conversation this afternoon about the contents of the letter that is here from the Barrier Islands Governmental Council, the Big C. And there's other mayors in the Pinellas County that are Woody Brown from Largo, Tarpon Springs is gonna be involved. These are other mayors that are gonna be signing this, just so we hopefully can get some traction on this letter. And I know that Felicia had mentioned to me, the letter is not 100% to her liking, because our city is, as we explained today in the council meeting, that we've already achieved over $2 million from FEMA. Some of the other municipalities aren't so fortunate to have that. We are blessed to have such great city staff that takes care of these issues and is forefront and for leaders in getting that accomplished. And I just wanted to say that this letter is more of a political idea of mayors working together to just try to get some traction so that we can help the citizens of Pinellas County. And I'm going to open up the discussion because I know you guys got a lot to say, if anybody would like to say anything. But this letter is basically, we are trying to help the citizens to see if we can get any traction. Anybody want to start, or anybody want to talk about it?
Sure, I'll,
You wanna
go
go?
ahead.
Vice Mayor, you go first.
Okay. So, the Big C and the Barrier Islands, I think they went through, to put it mildly, a different experience than we did. And we don't live there, we're not on council there. And I understand the mindset of, let's have some solidarity as mayors. But in reading this letter, that's not what this says. It doesn't have while this may not apply to all of the mayors, municipalities who are signing it, that is a sign of the multiple mayors from Pinellas County unifying to show their solidarity. There's none of that here. So I think it's more of a direct, for instance, paragraph 3 that says clarify and justify the look-back period and reset it for Helene flood victims. It was always my understanding, and Felicia, correct me if I'm wrong, that the look-back period is a local issue. That's not a, we need to ask the president issue. It's a local issue. Fast-track FEMA reimbursement for municipalities and counties. I'm not comfortable saying the city of Oldsmar is signing off on this letter saying this needs to be fast-tracked. When we received our $2.8 million reimbursement in January through an expedited request. So it's, thank you FEMA, but we're also signing this saying you're not doing it for everybody and we don't think that's fair. Well, we received it. So I don't think, while I appreciate the contents of the letter, especially if I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the leaders of the Barrier Islands, if it doesn't apply in full to what occurred here in Oldsmar, I would say that I could not be in favor of moving forward with this being sent as signed by the mayor of Oldsmar, with which not any of this, well, some of it does, but those 2 points in particular don't apply. If there's a follow-up letter that says, what we went through was different, however, just as my sign of, it's a conversation for another day. But I think the letter that we reviewed 2 weeks ago, Councilmember Gannon brought to us, that spelled out and it wasn't as direct as this letter, but like I said, I'm not in their shoes, so I had no role in drafting it or reviewing it other than tonight for your signature. But there was, this is what we're requesting and here's why. And this is more, we're seeing this throughout these Barrier Islands and we're not receiving it, and we want to move forward and make these requests. But ultimately, my main point, if it doesn't line up with what happened in Oldsmar, I don't see how I could be in favor of proceeding with authorizing you to say, Oldsmar signs off on every single letter or every single letter, comma, period, punctuation mark within this.
All right.
So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Councilor Knapp?
Sure. Thanks, Vice Mayor, for kind of that point there about how the framing of the support, whether it's those that are actually members of the council, the Barrier Island Council or not, and how they support this letter. My struggle, again, where it's like not we, because it's necessarily us potentially supporting this, is having enough information to know that those are sound asks, right? Specifically with the 50% rule, I don't know if it's outdated or not, just because it's there. I mean, the whole point of that rule is to discourage continuing to rebuild in an area that has some level of risk for flooding. You know, obviously, if people own their properties outright or own their houses outright, they have the option to purchase flood insurance. They're not required. But for everybody else that is a newer homeowner or first-time homeowner, most of them have mortgages. So they are bound to have flood insurance if they have properties in the special flood hazard area. So there's no getting out of the whole program, the NFIP. It is what it is. I know there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, it's all scam, or it's, you know, it's not the right system. That may be true, but that's not for us to decide. We're not going to get out of it. That's for the federal government to decide how that program is going to continue. Now, that could be an ask to say, well, can you, on a broad-based issue, look at those things? But to be asking for specifics without knowing the impacts of what that could do, both for our eligibility to be in the NFIP or not, I really struggle with that, because it just, again, everybody's going to have a different view on this, I think, in terms of how sensible is it to continue to rebuild at what level of dollar amount when the chances of getting flooded again are still there, right? So that is a struggle for me to just say, yeah, sounds great. I would love to see more of background information that would support why that is a justified position. I don't have that right now, so just with that alone, it would be a real struggle for me to support signing off on this letter.
All right. -2. Councilor Gannon, go ahead.
So I was a little bit more like I am, right? So I liked paragraph 2 that starts with many residents remain displaced down to that paragraph ending in rebuilding efforts. I think that's accurate. I think the next paragraph is accurate. Paragraph 1 on streamlining the repair permit process, I think that is correct. I think the substantial damage estimator tool is outdated and is clunky and difficult, and does cause delays because there's not sort of standardized costs and things to put in that would speed up the process. Like I gave the kind of drywall example for repairs, you know, on a regional basis, the cost for labor could be standardized so that it wouldn't take so long for every individual homeowner. So I like number 1. The 50% rule, I struggle with a little bit because, and I know our residents are struggling. I do not take that lightly. However, I don't want someone who has lost a great portion of their home or maybe most of their home, I don't want them to spend all of their insurance money or their life savings to repair something that is 52%, damaged, with my encouragement to go spend their life savings on repairing that, only to have it devastated again the following year. I mean, I am really discouraged by some of the things I've been hearing from residents. Things like, well, we haven't had one in 100 years since, 1921, and now it's, 2025, so that was our 100-year event. That is not how this works.
Yeah.
That is not how this works. Just because statistically, it's been 100 years and the floodplain is calculated over, the 100-year event, and it seemed like a 100-year event. That was not it. That was not it. And it scares me to think that, we could be participating, for example, in the subject line of the letters we examined last time that said, like, do away with permits entirely. I think that's really dangerous, because then what if we're allowing, as a city and as a county, homes to be built that don't meet the Florida Building Code? Who's going to buy that home in the future? The value of the homes, which then translates into the value of our taxes, could be decimated. So that's concerning to me about paragraph 2. Paragraph 3, I had a similar concern as Vice Mayor, because the look-back period is something that we set, and every local municipality sets. So ours is 5 years, but we just passed language revision in the definition on second reading at the last meeting, I think, to exempt flood and wind damage from our look-back period. So we kind of already addressed that as to Oldsmar, and on top of that, I know that I think it was one of these cities that immediately changed their look-back period, reduced it to just 1 year, and that triggered FEMA to be on their case in a bad way immediately. And I don't want that to happen to us. I don't believe that it will happen to us because of the way that we have been conducting ourselves. It's my understanding that a FEMA visit, on-site visit, did occur today, and we essentially got the indication that what we are doing is in compliance, it is favorable, and I want their eyes elsewhere. And we'll just keep doing our compliant and favorable action and take that wink and nod and keep doing what you're doing. I like that. For example, if this council decided, I want to put on the agenda, changing the look back period. If any one of you wanted to change our look back period right now, I would vote against that. That seems very dangerous to me. That seems like a potential audit, a potential probation from FEMA and NFIP, suspension of funding for federally backed mortgages. It makes me really nervous because we know what happened in Cape Coral after Hurricane Ian. So if other cities want to change their look back period, that's on them. But I don't know that the federal government can necessarily clarify and justify the look back period. I would be in favor of more education for people, our residents, about what a look back period is and what it does. I think our city has tried to do a good job of that after the fact, but it was really hard at first. So paragraph 4, fast track FEMA reimbursements. I do think that some of our cities in Pinellas County do not have city managers or have recently had turnover with their city managers that is difficult and unfortunate, and they might not have known that there is a process to expedite a reimbursement such that we did to get that happening more quickly. So, we request expedited reimbursements. Well, that's already available. It's just that maybe some of these cities didn't know that. I don't know who wrote this letter. I don't know if it's a city manager or a mayor or the councils collectively writing it. But I thought that was just a little bit a little bit difficult to understand. I agree with the broad impact statement that, of course, faster payments would help communities, restore infrastructure with less delay. So I agree with the concept of paragraph 4, but it's like it's like the letter's asking for something that's already available. It's just that maybe others didn't know about it. Unnecessary burdens might be addressed. Again, I'm a little bit nervous about poking the bear with that one. I do agree that with those the first checkboxes on speeding up disaster recovery, modernizing FEMA policies and procedures, I would add, providing financial clarity on flood insurance policies, that can always be done. So those first two bullet points, I agree with. I don't know if reimbursements on the fourth bullet points, I don't agree with the third check mark. And the fourth check mark, I don't know that they're not being timely reimbursed. I was honestly shocked that we already got $2.8 million back. So I don't know that other cities are not timely being reimbursed. I do like the invitation to visit Pinellas County. I think that's a great idea. I think that, I was even disappointed watching the Super Bowl when they mentioned California and North Carolina, and I was like, hey, Florida. Because it does feel a little bit forgotten, maybe because Floridians are so used to dealing with hurricanes, but those are my specific issues with the letter as written. I don't know if there's an opportunity to redraft it, or if there's an opportunity to, clarify some of those specific things, or refine the letter, but that's my feedback.
Thank you very much. Councilmember, anything?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I did not come in here with a strong opinion one way or the other about this letter. I read it, and I think that some of it does, similar to what Councilmember Gander was saying, I think some of it really does apply to us. Some of it really well written, and I think the benefit to signing it would be mostly for solidarity for the other municipalities who are experiencing some of the things that we're not experiencing. So I understand why you brought the letter to the council to review. I agree that there are other people who were hit much harder than us and probably are experiencing some much more devastating effects, not to undercut or undermine what people in our city are going through. But I do feel like Oldsmar has probably been more proactive, and we wrote our own letter that went to the president before this came out. That was tailored specifically towards what our residents are experiencing firsthand here. So if the whole council wanted to sign this letter in a show of solidarity to the municipalities that were experiencing these things firsthand, I would probably say, okay. But it sounds like there's not an agreement of that sort. Correct. And so I don't know that there's a distinct detriment to us not signing this. Mm-hmm. So because we've already sent our own letter, we have documented some of the struggles that our own city is having firsthand. So, I think at this point, it's kind of dead.
It is.
Kind of dead in the water. I don't know if you have more you want to share about the reasons that you wanted to sign the letter, or.
Like I explained at the beginning, but I just wanted to say that, thank you all for your feedback. I greatly appreciate it. Oh,
Katie
yep.
wants to add something.
I just had a question.
Sure.
Well, you can finish, though.
No, I appreciate your feedback. I will just tell the other mayors that the city of Oldsmar will not be involved. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Do you think that they would be interested in sending a different letter? For example, what if the letter came from all of the mayors of Pinellas County as an invitation to come and visit, as a sort of don't forget about us letter, something that isn't necessarily targeting FEMA or the individual needs of each city, but do you think that the mayors would collectively unite and invite the president?
I can ask them. I will ask Dave, Mayor Gaddis. I'll ask him, but I don't know. I think that they're getting ready to mail this.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that suggestion would be in addition to the letter.
Yeah.
They've already signed. I think, yeah.
They've already signed, and a lot of other mayors have already signed this, but that's fine. I'm glad for your feedback. I wanted to bring this to council. I thought it was important. I work with these mayors, every day during the week, and it's not a big deal. but thank you. I
I
appreciate
would
it.
just say, I don't think any of us have any opposition to being in solidarity about all the impacts
Yeah,
that
not at all.
everybody is dealing with. And granted, it's varying degrees of how difficult things are on a city-by-city basis and frankly, the unincorporated parts of the county as well. So there is, what I would hope you could convey to them in saying that we may not be signing this in support is we do want to collaborate and find the best way, the strongest messaging, the most succinct messaging to Councilmember Gannon's point, get the president in Pinellas County, right? See what happened here.
Yeah, he was over in Daytona and
Right.
Volusia for the Daytona 500.
Yeah, it has no issues flying around, right? So fly here to Tampa International and come and see what people are still dealing with
Well, that
today.
was
And
our-
maybe make some stops on the other hurricanes that people are still dealing with.
No, I know the
from
letter's
last
not
few years.
100%. I know it's not correct all the way, but that was our goal was, on that Zoom call.
Well, to the point, it may be correct, I don't believe it's correct for Oldsmar.
Well, there you go.
I mean, I think that's what we're all trying to say, is in solidarity, sure, but if we're going to sign this, I think all of the
Specific
points that are
actions.
laid out should be specific to Oldsmar, and it's, in my
I will,
reading, it
yep,
wasn't.
I will tell the other mayors that, and I will tell them we're not gonna be in this letter. No problem. Thank you. Thank you again. All right, let's move on to, next is council comments, and we're starting with council member Katie Gannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Whew, it was busy this weekend. Oldsmar Little League opening day. I just wanted to say it was a fantastic event. The Parks and Rec Department, I hope, yes, Chip is gone. Hopefully he is sleeping. I have no idea how the Parks and Recreation Department coordinated BMX and opening day with the grace and the fluidity and the perceived smoothness with which everything went off. I mean, it was perfect. The fields looked fantastic. We had to do the opening ceremonies on Field 3 because the backstop, the one we just approved tonight, the budget revision for, where they're going to fix the fencing. But it was great to see everybody out there. I'm just going to put it out there. I think Val had the best pitch. The Yankees coach, who was on the third baseline, said, "Whoa." I'm just saying, it was
So nervous.
That was a solid
For your
strike.
first one, it was great.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
Solid strike. I thought it was really good.
Thank you.
And so hats off to Parks and Recreation and to Oldsmar Little League. As Mayor said in his opening comments that morning, thank you to the parents, the volunteers, the board members, everybody the sponsors, everybody who participates to make Little League an incredible season for all of those kids out there. The Women's Club of Oldsmar, y'all, the soup party. Okay, so the soup party is always a great success, but this year we deposited in excess of $800
Wow,
in
good.
funds received from that single event. Because of that success of that event, we're thinking about doing other fundraising events and doing more. We haven't decided on it yet, but doing more give backs, more scholarships, making it every year. I mean, the things that this community has enabled us to do is just growing and growing and growing. I want to give a special shout out to Miss Paula Saraki because her idea this year to do sponsorships, in addition to selling the soup at $6 a bowl, was a big deal because her idea was to have, you get 10 tickets, if you sponsor a table, right? Well, they're not going to use all 10 tickets, but then they donated $100 or $150 or whatever it was. And so then right off the bat, the event was already in the black. We were already successful with those sponsorship dollars. And I think we're going to implement that in future events. Hopefully Paula won't have to do all of that work, but she was very good at it. So I just wanted to thank our sponsors for that event. It included chamber members, Power Clean. We had Florida Firearms Academy. I know they're in Tampa, but still they continually support us. Lynette Kirby. I'm going to forget somebody because I didn't write them down.
Ginger.
It's a racquetball.
Ginger did, yeah, Ginger
Racquetball?
and
Was it racquetball?
real estate, somebody,
The flea market racquetball, didn't they?
Pickleball, you mean?
Pickleball.
pickleball.
Thank you, yeah.
all of those sponsors immediately put us in the black. It was a fantastic event. And the church also had their own super party that night too, which I think we need to take notes from the decorating committee over at the church, because they did an excellent job theming out the football thing. It was fantastic. I wanted to thank Joan Byrne for her presentations tonight. She has a way with words and presentations. I really enjoy her presentations on public art. It makes it really accessible. I'm excited about the Heart Project. I love the puzzle project. I think our residents really get into it. I know I got into it with the puzzle thing. I only did one puzzle piece, but I could have done a bunch. So I wanted to thank her for her continued input and the way in which she delivers it. Fun fact, she is going to be our guest speaker at the next Women's Club meeting. And then finally, the next Suncoast League of Cities meeting is this Friday. And so I will be able
Zoom,
to.
right?
Yes, it is via Zoom. I believe 11:30 to 12:30. So I'll be able to report back at the next meeting. Chalk the Park was already announced at the beginning of the meeting as part of the community minute, but that's Saturday. And Spray Park is finally opening March 1. I know it feels like, I don't know if I want to run through cold water right now, but yesterday it was really hot. I just wanted to highlight that. And last thing, the Oldsmar Friends of the Arts Mardi Gras is coming up. It is unfortunately on a council night, but I hope that the council will go on over there after our meeting if time allows. It's over at the library at 7 p.m. Tuesday, March 4th, to raise money for Friends of the Arts, which then goes to the Opal Theater programs and all of the shows that we love and enjoy. I think that's all. Oh, one more thing, February 27th is the last day to request a mail ballot. So if you want to vote for any of the 4 people in this room in this next election via mail ballot, you have to re-request it by visiting votepinellas.gov or by calling the Supervisor of Elections office. I think that's it.
All right, last question for you. Did you sign up for Suncoast League of Cities Legislative? You go up Monday and Tuesday?
No, I did not.
Okay, I was just wondering if you did. Okay. Next is Councilmember Andrew Knapp.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things. I know I shared at the last meeting at council comments about kind of some development with the noise abatement working group, as it's now called. So I want to just read the email that I received recently. I shared with the city clerk today, which she can probably print or forward to everyone. Kind of what prompted that discussion last week, and then that'll lead to probably some discussion when we get to the next agenda item for the tentative. So with the following this was from Cheryl Soska, who's kind of their administrator for the working group. With the following forthcoming changes to the noise task force turning into a working group, we have been reviewing all our members. When Linda Norris left, you were automatically placed on the task force as her replacement without consideration of any local Oldsmar citizens. There weren't any citizens who were stepping up to volunteer, and we appreciate that you have been a member of our task force and the time you have dedicated. As we shift to the working group, we would like to consider Kathy Mintier as a representative for the city of Oldsmar for the working group.
Did you get fired?
No. No. It'll all make sense in a minute.
Okay.
Sorry. She regularly attends meetings, is in communication with the PI staff in between meetings, and we believe she would make a great advocate for the city. If you agree with this change and deferring your seat to Mrs. Mintier, we will move forward to obtain the county administrator's approval on this change. Please let us know your thoughts. To which I haven't responded to that email yet because I obviously mentioned it last meeting. But the reason, to explain some of the content of that meeting is basically that board, or that as it was before the task force and now the working group, there's close to 20 people in that. And as it stands of today, I'm the only elected person serving on that board. It is pretty much about 2 to 1, let's say, but nearly 50-50 of residents of all the different areas that could be affected by airport noise. So think Feather Sound, Safety Harbor, North St. Pete, Oldsmar. Kathy Mintier is basically at every meeting. And then a lot of airport staff. So airport operations, Shelter, Allegiant Air. That's the composition of that group. And then I'm kind of the outlier. And that goes back to pre-me when it was Councilmember Norris serving on the task force. So it just kind of makes sense that that's where they want that focus to be, the right composition of that board. So that's something that, like I said, I forwarded this email to our city clerk. I do want to respond to her after I know if we have it on the tentative agenda tonight to kind of let them know where we at with proceeding with that change. So just wanted to share that. So some additional
We get to
context.
fire
You
you.
get to fire and hire my replacement.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it's like not even realizing it, but like having sat in those meetings, it was like it's a lot of residents, and then it even says in the minutes, it says Andrew Knapp, City of Oldsmar resident and council member, wherever, like many other people, is resident of all these different neighborhoods, because that's how they break down the data of who's impacted by noise. It's what number of complaints from Feather Sound.
Do you know if she would be interested in?
She has sent an email expressing her interest, so I think that might be also where this kind of prompted from, is like, I'll go, because I'm already there. But she's always as a speaking visitor or guest instead of an actual participatory member.
She's not like an alternate?
No,
She's just a speaking.
she's just
I would
there
be
as a
in
guest.
favor
Good,
of putting
perfect.
that on the
So-
agenda, not to fire you,
I-
but to promote a resident being involved and to empower her.
She's absolutely. So just want to add some additional context before we get to that action.
Sorry, Andrew.
It's okay. As y'all probably noticed, I kind of missed out on the activities of this last weekend because had the vacation and then needed the vacation from the vacation. So just was nice to have a relatively quiet weekend. So I look forward to the upcoming events and being out there with everybody. Special MVP of the meeting tonight, Ron Acoy, saving Daniel there with some water.
Thank you.
Yes.
I hope he's at home now and not coughing so much. And then just finally, I'm sure they're both watching because they're waiting for me to come pick up the little ones and get them home to bed. But happy early birthday to my mother. Her birthday is the 2nd of March. And then a week from today, we will have a 5-year-old. So happy birthday to my sweet Leona. She will be 5. Seems like yesterday. So I will be home soon, or will be home at Mamlaw soon to pick you up and take you home and put you to bed.
I remember when Nicole was pregnant. Oh my God.
Yeah, just yesterday. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Knapp. Next is Councilmember Valerie Terezeski.
So it has been a busy past few weekends. We did have the Women's Club Super Bowl party. To touch base on that too, anybody who doesn't know what the Women's Club of Oldsmar is, every dollar that we raise at these fundraising events is poured back into our community. So we do a scholarship for an Oldsmar resident who's attending a local college, St. Pete College. We do donate to charities like Jack's Village. We write a check to the Friends of the Library. And it's all very specific for either directly Oldsmar or right next door that's impacting the residents here firsthand. So all that money that we raised is going straight back into our community. So that was a great event.
And it's fun.
And then I got to go to my first BMX opening ceremony and wear my shirt with my name on the back. That was really cool. And watch the little tiny taps on the striders. Yeah,
Yep.
that was really neat. So that was an exciting event. And then my first Little League opening ceremony for the 2025 season. And Katie had this great idea that everybody should throw. And I was terrified because I haven't thrown a baseball in like 10 years. So she was very kind to me. She's like, let's go practice one or two. And I felt more comfortable and I did okay. So, but yeah, it was a little terrifying. Like in front of a bunch of people, it's not like you're in your backyard throwing a few and if you do it wrong, then and it rolls into home plate, it's no big deal. It's like
It used
everybody's
to be
watching.
Mayor would throw the first pitch and I was the only female. So I would throw the
was-
first softball
Yeah,
pitch.
she was being nice.
But
so
then I
thank
was
you.
like, that's not cool. Val's here.
It was a nice opportunity. It was also terrifying. Thank you for pushing me out of my comfort zone.
Did great.
I did okay.
Better than okay.
I survived. I'm excited about the art project and the hearts. I grabbed a couple for my family to do as well. And then Also, a thank you to Daniel Simpson for his presentation tonight on St. Pete Drive. I think it's extremely important to our residents as far as transparency goes. I know that's one of our goals as a council is to increase that transparency. And so I think that conversation tonight and making sure everything's on the record and out in the open for everybody, is uncomfortable as sometimes it is, I think it's extremely important to our job, and I know that it's important to our community. So that's it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
When you go last, everything's been said, so that's all I had, Mayor, in the interest of time. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I just have a couple things. Back to the Women's Club, I ate too much soup. I was stuffed. It was great. All the soups were fantastic. And then Valerie, you won, and I didn't even get to have any.
Didn't even announce that. Bad cake.
Valerie won the best soup.
I'll make you some soup.
Mary
And it
made
was like,
chicken
I got
soup.
like 2 little noodles.
It was gone by the time I got there.
I wanted
And
to,
then-
I wanted to share something with you guys. I took a bike ride the last 2 weeks to Sheffield Park because some neighbors were upset about some trees being cut down. I went for a ride, there was no trees, it was just the pepper plants. And the park, if you have time, you need to go look at this park. It is absolutely beautiful. Our city staff has done an amazing job. I took a ride yesterday because it was a holiday. Paul and I took a ride out there. There were, I don't know how many people, 30 people playing golf. There were so many people playing golf. The golf fairways are all cleared out. They're all clean. There were big 2 weeks ago, there were big piles of debris, and I was like, oh, I was gonna call Felicia, and I said, I'm not gonna call her. I'm gonna be quiet. And then I went yesterday, and everything was picked up, and the park looks great. So I just wanted to, hats off to the city staff and getting that park cleaned. It looks great.
Mayor, may I just jump in? Because I think some of the local disc golf club also takes a lot of pride in that course. And they are also heavily invested and involved in maintaining the look and feel of that course.
Felicia did mention
They're
that.
on top of it.
They had a battery-operated chainsaw, I guess, and they cut it all back.
Yeah.
But
They
even
mean business because they want to find their discs.
yeah, even the pond area, the ponds, the canal areas were all overgrown. It's all cleared out, and you got a straight view now. It's just, I don't think I've ever seen it that nice in the years. The Little League kickoff, that was a great thing. I was telling the council members back in 2011, I was the only one, and Craig Gross and I would be the only ones there. I think it's fantastic that the whole council goes to that event right now to support those families and those kids that play the baseball. I think it's wonderful. I love the idea of all of us got the pitch. I think it worked out great event. And then the BMX, you guys talked about that, but I thought that was really successful. We couldn't ask for better weather for both events. And then I was asked by Whit Blanton to attend the Florida Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Council Thursday. So I'll be attending that in Orlando for the Freight and Rail Committee, Staff Directories Advisory Committee, and the Governing Board for Forward Pinellas. So I'm really looking forward to that new learning experience. So that's all I really had to share, except that soup. I'm still full. Tom, you got anything for us? All right, then we're gonna keep going here. So consider the tentative agenda. Does anybody wish to pull or add anything to the tentative agenda?
We have to add
All right.
the possible termination of Andrew Knapp from, right?
That wasn't the language I had written down, but if you want to add it that way, I'll make the motion.
Your point, the point that you got from that motion second, yeah, that just got wiped out.
All right, so I got,
Councilmember Gannon for the proper wording of Andrew's pending termination.
Well, would it be, City Attorney, would it be considered termination of Andrew Knapp's member of the Noise Abatement Task Force, or would it be consider appointment of resident Liz Minitier to the Noise Abatement Working Group?
The latter.
I move to approve the tentative agenda with the addition of consider approval of appointment of Liz Minitier to the Noise Abatement Work Group.
Second.
Yes.
Okay.
all right. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
The
Meeting
latter.
adjourned.
The latter. Did they fire you? No. We're firing you.
You fired.